1:30. I'd like to call the May 16, 2016 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission to order. Roll call, Commissioner Witcher.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Here, sir.
Commissioner White.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner George.
Here.
Commissioner Yonkel. She's absent. Can I have a motion concerning the minutes of the April 18, 2016 meeting?
I will move approval is submitted.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Witcher. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hale. Do we have any discussion on the meeting minutes? We have a motion to approve the minutes of April 18, 2016 by Commissioner Witcher, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Votes, please. Okay, item is approved. Report on licensed taxi and wrecker service from the police department will be done at the July meeting. No items on the consent docket. Item 5A. Staff, can we have your input on item 5A, please?
Item 5A is Jonathan Heisel of Path Engineering has requested that this item be struck. They've submitted a revised plan and would like us to consider that, so strike item A.
Okay, can I have a motion concerning item 5A?
Motion to strike.
A motion to strike from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on item 5A? Okay, we have a motion to strike item 5A from the agenda from Commissioner Hale. Second by Commissioner Schuline. Votes, please. Okay, item is approved. Item struck. We go on now to item 5B, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President, Johnson & Associates, Inc., to consider request for 1, establish 90-degree angle parking within proposed on-street setback parking areas on the east side of South Hudson Avenue from Southwest 3rd Street to Southwest 7th Street, and 2, establish 90-degree angle reserved parking spaces for the physically disabled on items A, B, C, D, E, and 3, establish parallel reserved parking spaces for the physically disabled on sub-items A, B, C, and D. You have anybody here to speak on this item? Sir, if I can have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes, and fill one of these out when you're done.
Caleb Morgan, Johnson Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue, Oklahoma City. We appreciate staff's review of it, and we are ready to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you can fill one of them out. Anybody else to speak on item 5B? Okay, staff input.
This request is in conjunction with the MAPS 3 Downtown Park. This is to approve all the parking along the west side of the park on Hudson Avenue. Staff recommends approval of the request as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the application as submitted.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Witcher. Any discussion on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Witcher. Votes, please. Okay, item is approved. We go on now to item 5C, Stacy Trumbo, P.E., County Engineer, Oklahoma County, to consider request to 1, remove 1 hour metered parking on the west side of North Hudson Avenue from Northwest 4th Street to Dean A. McGee Avenue. 2, remove 2 hour metered parking on the west side of North Hudson Avenue from Dean A. McGee Avenue to Robert S. Kerr Avenue. And 3, establish a no parking anytime restriction on the west side of North Hudson Avenue from Northwest 4th Street to Robert S. Kerr Avenue. Do you have anybody here to speak on item 5C? Sir, if I can have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes, and make sure to fill one of these out, please.
Stacy Trumbo, County Engineer, 320 Robert S. Kerr. I appreciate the committee's attention to this matter this afternoon. A very difficult issue for us from the bus station coming south. You come past our county garage, then the county courthouse complex, then you got the library and the Devon Tower. All destinations. A lot of people come to that all during the day. Those are pretty well fixed issues, so we don't have a lot of variables to work with to try to solve some of these issues. We are looking at maybe the internal workings of our garage to try to make them work better with the street. We don't have any solutions at this point, but we're looking at that. Doesn't give the city a lot of variables either, but this on-street parking being in the mix of your buses coming south and all the traffic, people trying to get to our garage, then in the future you're going to have the downtown train coming north right there in front of the garage. So very congested, a lot of pedestrians there too. So we're just asking if we can review those parking spots. It doesn't solve the problem completely, we realize that, but got to get some variables out of the mix. We've got a couple thousand parking spaces in our garage. There's, I don't know, 70 or 80 spaces on the west side of Hudson. It's a privately owned parking lot, so it would seem like these spaces aren't that critical. Maybe to the overall count of the downtown area, but just in that location, especially the 11 in the block next to the garage. And then I think there's 7 or 8 more in the block to the north that was included in the request, but those could be separated. Answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wanting to speak on item 5C? Yes, ma'am. If I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes, and please fill out one of these forms when you're done.
I'll do it. Hi, my name's Jane Jenkins. I reside at 220 Northwest 19th Street, but I'm here in the capacity as the president of Downtown Oklahoma City Incorporated. We've been here before on this very issue and feel like through this commission we came up with what we thought was a very workable solution to retaining the parking that is very necessary and very important to downtown visitors, as well as helping ease the traffic congestion on Hudson on the mornings where there are, particularly on the first and third, whatever the jury Mondays are. You know, we understand that that's a problem. Streetcar construction is not going to start for another 2 months. Another 18 months. Wish it were 2 months. And we can certainly evaluate the situation as we go through another construction phase there. But I will tell you that patrons of the Art Museum use that parking. Visitors to folks at the Park Harvey use that parking. Other different types of downtown people use that parking. There's an office there. There's just many types of uses for that parking, and that's a lot of parking to take away in a downtown that doesn't have very much on-street parking, and we really, really don't. And there's not necessarily a garage close by like the Arts District Garage to accommodate those spaces. We believe that the solution, the no parking from 7 to 9 a.m., monitored by the police department. I assure you that I use Hudson almost every morning to get to work, particularly since Harvey's been closed. And they're out there every morning monitoring it, and I haven't really noticed a situation. So on behalf of the downtown businesses and such there, we would ask that you retain the current situations in place and that we reevaluate when we know more about what's going to happen with the streetcar construction. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5C? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
Mr. Stacy Trumbo, county engineer, has submitted his request to eliminate the parking on the west side of Hudson with the reason stated is to improve ingress and egress conditions for the parking garage. The Traffic and Transportation Commission last considered this request in February 15th of 2014. At the time, as an alternative, they proposed the no parking from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., which has been enforced with the PSTs every morning. I believe we have a video showing before and after of that location, before and after. One of the things that the county is concerned with is the backup on Hudson Avenue. But as you can see in our video, the backup with or without the parking there is similar. At this time, staff has no cause to recommend any changes to the parking.
Okay, do I have a motion concerning item 5C?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we deny the application at this time and reconsider it at a later date.
And we have a motion to deny item 5C. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner George. Any talk on item 5C? Okay. We have a motion to deny item 5C from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner George. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is not approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5D. Stacy Trumbo, P.E., County Engineer, Oklahoma County, to consider a request, 1, remove 1-hour metered parking on the west side of North Harvey Avenue from Park Avenue to approximately 160 feet north of the north curb line of Park Avenue, and 2, establish full-time reserved parking for government business zone on the west side of North Harvey Avenue from Park Avenue to approximately 160 feet north of the north curb line of Park Avenue. Sir, if I have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, Stacy Trumbo again, 320 Robert S. Kerr. This parking at one time was reserved for law enforcement on the east of the courthouse. Law enforcement has a lot of business there, and before 180, that's the way it was. Now I think it's anyone can park there. I have Lieutenant Pence, who's with our courthouse security here, that would like to speak to you as well. He has a little bit more detail about the information, but we'd just like to return it to the way it used to be. We think law enforcement has that need, and when they don't have that parking available to them, I'm not sure where they're parking, but they may be taking up meters that you could be getting revenue from, and I understand they don't have to feed the meter. So might be in mutual best interest to restore this. Lieutenant?
Yes, sir, if I can have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes and fill one of these out later. Oh, you got one. Thank you very much, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Pence. I'm the security commander at the Oklahoma County Courthouse. I'm here today. The concern is what used to be, until we came to the Project 180, the west side, Harvey Avenue, just north of Park to the alleyway. Actually, it actually went to R.S. Kerr, was designated solely for testimonial spots for law enforcement, i.e. city, county, state, and federal law enforcement entities. At this point, we have no parking for subpoenaed law enforcement officials whatsoever. I don't feel it's very advantageous to put any kind of patrol units in our parking garages, whether they be metered or else for the protection of the vehicles and the weapons that are stored within. So what we're asking for is your consideration to remark that area that I just had cut out to be law enforcement units only.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak on item 5D? Yes, ma'am. If I can have your name, address, you have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, Jane Jenkins. I reside at 220 Northwest 19th Street, and I'm here representing Downtown Oklahoma City Incorporated. We really did not have a problem with this when it was used for police officer parking, and we don't really have an objection to this request. However, I'm going to use this time, and you may hear me say this again. I have spoken with both Eric Winger, Director of Public Works, and Jason Fairbrush, who is the Director of COTPA, and we think it's probably time to do an overall scan of the downtown on-street parking in light of Project 180 so that we can consider all of these request in the larger aggregate of where they should go. I know you're going to have one for 15-minute parking coming up, and you have another one for a loading zone, both on Park Avenue. And we understand that Project 180 made these things change, but we're not saying that they shouldn't necessarily be there, but we'd like to look at them in part of a larger picture of how downtown parking has changed, what the inventory, who's using that parking, what the time limits need to be, et cetera, as we go on. And both Eric and Jason are in favor of at least having that discussion to see if that's something we need to do in the future. That being said, at this point, I don't have any reason why that parking between Harvey there, it would be nice to have it for downtown transient visitors, particularly because a lot of people like to eat at Nebu, and this limited parking on Park Avenue for that, but I understand the need for the courthouse to have a place for the officers to park where they can access their vehicles quickly. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else for item 5D? Okay, staff input, please.
Thank you. Mr. Trumbo has submitted a request to reestablish the law enforcement parking area. Staff is recommending that this be reserved for the parking of government business and will be in effect on a full-time basis.
Do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request with the condition that the reserved parking for government business zone will be in effect on a full-time basis, as noted by the staff.
Okay. Do we have a second to item 5D?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Witcher. Any discussion on item 5D? Yes, sir.
I don't know who's most appropriate to direct this to, but the distinction between governmental parking and specifically subpoenaed police officers, does that do anything good, bad, or indifferent for you guys?
So what we're asking for is these designated parking areas that we've cut out are for state subpoena testimonial purposes. I wouldn't say it necessarily needs to be a 7/24 situation, but during operation hours of the courts from 8 to 5 would suffice.
But in terms of providing it for the people that you feel like need it, is it, and enforcing that, governmental sounds like it could be that the mayor could park there, and you're intending it to be police cars, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, that's what you submitted to the staff, right, was to have it that, and then staff made the change to say just any government vehicle? Is that correct?
We made the change to say on government business because many of the police cars that are there are unmarked police cars, but they are still government.
Marked and unmarked, yes, sir.
That's why we
Okay.
recommended government business.
That's a good distinction. Is that enforceable? I mean, is there a way to know that unmarked cars that it's okay for them to be there?
Some of our unmarked cars should have like a city or state tag that designates that. If not, most of the time they'll have some sort of placard that they'll put up in the dash.
Great, thanks.
So you're okay with the wording
Yes, sir.
of saying government vehicles?
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
While he's here,
Hold up.
do you have a problem with a time constraint, like 8 to 5, instead of any time? Because it's my understanding.
So I think that would be fine, at least during court operations, to allow the officers sufficient time to get in on a subpoena and cover their testimony.
So 7:30 to 5:30 would be fine. That way it'd free up parking for other events?
Yes, sir.
Or was there some reason that there was full-time?
It's not metered parking, so if I parked there to go to a show the night before and I was not moved by
No, what I'm saying is, though, the motion included just all-time, full-time, but if
Yeah.
you had it from 8:30 to 5:30, anyone could park there, and it would not have to be a government vehicle, which would free up some
My point
nighttime
is-
parking.
I agree, but my point is that if there's a car that's parked that was left overnight or something, then somebody's got to tow it in the morning, a car that's not supposed to be there.
Well, it just goes with the normal metered parking, it goes with the normal reserve parking. When we put that out, that's a normal 8 to 5 usually. Just like right out here for the parking we park in, it says 8 to 5. Other than that, people can use it. So I guess what the question you're asking is, does it need to be 24 hours, or can it be just 8 to 5 Monday through Friday?
I don't believe it needs to be on a 24-hour basis, as long as we can get those areas vacated by at least 8 a.m.
Well, which is what happens everywhere else. When there's plays going on and people need to park, that could be available parking on the weekends, because you don't do court business on the weekends, correct?
Generally, sir, what we do is, when we find a vehicle out there that's been left, we generally place a warning on it, bringing their attention to the signage. and that takes care of it.
Okay, yes, ma'am, come on up. All right, thank you very much, Elsie.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, obviously, downtown would be in favor of the restriction on the time so that the parking was available to anyone after 5:30. Again, the Park Harvey does not have a parking garage for its residents or its visitors, so that would be helpful in the afternoon. Often, sometimes there's evening events at Leadership Square or at the Devon Tower or in other places where they can use it. Also, I'd like to say if you can get, the same kind of enforcement that you have on the Harvey thing that could check that, a parking ticket that's not a paid, an overtime parking ticket for being parked where you're not supposed to be parked is $50. It's not a small fine for someone, and if it happens to them more than a warning, I mean, it's significant, then they'll remember not to do it again. Thanks.
All right, so LT, what would be a good time if we went with a time, what would be good for you to make sure that the cars can get in there, park, do their business, and then also stay in there or have a late call?
What we'd be asking for, sir, is the business days of the week, 8 to 5:30.
8 to 5?
8 to 5 would be fine.
8 to 5, 8 to 6, 8 to 5, okay? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we have staff input. We have some talk up here. Any other talk up here before we go back to the motioner? All right, so do you want to modify or you want to keep your motion as is?
I have no objection to modifying if they're comfortable with it. And
Okay? So,
Chairman, if we do modify, I'm going to ask for a deferral on this item because we need to do some history research on this issue. There's a legal background that we were able to promote this, and in order to ensure that the history supports the motion, we need to do the research before we go forward with that type of modification.
so, sir, would it be okay if we waited a month to implement this? It would be okay? All right.
Before we do that, isn't there in the staff recommendation saying that you did recommend, the motion was made for full-time, but staff recommends 6 to 8?
The full-time is what staff recommended. If we're going beyond that, we need to...
I'm talking about on page 4, under recommendation, right above the summary of the staff, where it says, all parking limit regulations, unless otherwise specified, shall be enforced at effect between the hours of 8 and 6, except Sundays and holidays.
This specifically is for reservation for a particular government activity, so since we're restricting it to government activity, I need to see what the prior existing condition was that they had before it was changed with 180.
Okay.
Okay, so we go back to the motioner. Is there any change you want to your motion?
sounds like you suggest I withdraw the motion and let them come back next month.
If you were wanting to do the modification, yes.
I'm going to, just to ask the question, if we were to approve for full-time, could we come back as soon as in a month and modify it to the 8 to 5? Or is that too much trouble? Is it better to wait?
All parking restrictions downtown are in effect from 8 a.m. to 6, unless otherwise noted. So if you wanted to modify it to be 8 to 6 from a full-time basis, and you wanted to do it for next month, I'm not sure if we can get it for next month, but we can try. If you approve it now and then want to modify it next month.
So, Counselor, he's saying that all restrictions are automatically 8 to 6 unless otherwise noted.
Right.
So if we approve this, it would be noted on the sign 24/7, or words of that nature.
Would that be fine?
That's what would be...
At all times.
Yeah, it would say at all times. Knowing that we would maybe like that, we would get another motion to come in and say, put it back to the 8 to 6.
But you just made a good point. We would have incurred the cost of a sign and then another sign. It's probably better to defer.
Okay? All right. Sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, hold on one moment. The seconder, are you okay with that? To withdraw the original motion?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can I have a motion concerning item 5D?
Move to defer 30 days to the next month.
Okay, we have a motion to defer item 5D from Commissioner George. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on this item? Okay, and everybody out there is okay with this. Wait in another month until we can figure it, because we want that. Seems like we want the 8 to 6 thing. Okay? All right. So we have a motion from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Schuline, to defer item 5D till next month. May I have your votes, please? Okay. Item is deferred. We go on now to item 5E. Robert Denny, Vice President of Operations, Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce, to consider a request to remove 1 hour metered parking on the north side of Park Avenue from approximately 135 feet east to 179 feet east of the east curb line of North Robinson Avenue, and establish a 15-minute time-limited parking zone within the same limits. Do we have anybody here to speak on item 5E? Yes, ma'am. I can have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes, and I have your form.
I'm Barb Denny. I reside at 1112 Northwest 141st Street, and I'm here representing the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber this morning. First of all, thank you for your consideration of this request. Our request really is for limited time spaces on Park Avenue, and there are 4 other, I guess, just consideration points I would like to add that weren't maybe in your packet. First of all, we are retained, and the City of Oklahoma City pays us and contracts with us to provide services for visitors, residents, and local businesses within Oklahoma City. The Greater Oklahoma City Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is a division of the Chamber, provides services for conventioneers and for events hosted in the local area. And so we do have many times where materials for those types of activities are picked up at our office locations. In tandem with the ease of trying to find our location or our designated spaces on a main street like Park Avenue, the ease of access is also a consideration that we would like you to weigh. Currently, the Park Avenue opens up into our front door on ground level. And these spaces that have been requested are to replace the spaces that were eliminated when Couch Drive was reconfigured. The Couch Drive spaces right now, you do have about 3 steps down to get into our building and facility. So it is a little bit easier if access can be achieved through the Park Avenue location doorway as opposed to Couch Drive. A third consideration for us, which a lot of this is around loading and unloading materials for conventioneers and events, is the size of the overall spaces. On pages 9 and 10 of the packets that you have, you can see the spaces designated for each of the items. On page 9, the spaces on Park Avenue measure about 21.5 feet. On page 10, assuming that these spaces go back into the space that was originally where the 30-minute parking was, those spaces are about 20 feet, and you do have to work around the stairwells. So when you are loading boxes in and out of a visitor's car or something like that, some of those space differences can be notable because we're generally loading boxes off of a cart or a dolly. The last point, I think, is really throughout this summary, references made to free time-limited parking. I think our biggest concern is the time-limited aspect of that. And really trying to make sure that there is enforcement. This would allow those spaces to turn a little bit faster so that when we do have people wanting to pick up those materials, those spaces are ideally available and can be managed. And I do know that in this request it was for 2 spaces, but typically these pickup time periods or drop-offs are only about 15 minutes. And realistically, 1 space would be adequate if that were feasible in this overall consideration. And I do appreciate what the others have mentioned about more of a comprehensive look at parking. both in Project 180 and in Couch Drive. So if this needs to be considered at a time when all of that is being reevaluated, we do understand that. I think in that concept or context, we do notice that some of the parking on Couch Street is maybe not enforced as rigidly as it maybe could be. And I do know that that is a street that has just opened, and so that might also help eliminate a little bit of the bottleneck right now, is just making sure that those spaces are limited to 1 hour until this more comprehensive look happens.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, you have somebody else signed up to speak, sir. If you can come on up, I need your name, your address. You have up to 5 minutes, and I have your form.
I'm Steve Sherman. I'm at 117 Park Avenue, and I own 117 Park Avenue. I have a new tenant coming in. It's Integris. It's putting in a downtown clinic. They're under construction right now, and they're very concerned about limiting the parking to 15 minutes. On a personal level, I've been on Park Avenue for 30 years, and there is typically adequate parking. People jockey for places. That's just downtown life, and I would hate to see that become 15-minute parking. Both of those spaces appear to be directly in front of 117 Park Avenue. Also, Arvest has just opened at 115 Park Avenue, and they have business that takes more than 15 minutes. It's very difficult. With regard to Integris, they anticipate they're going to have handicap doors, of course. They're anticipating people that are impaired somewhat, and they need to be there more than 15 minutes if they can get one of those places. As to Park Avenue, just as my editorial comment, the parking spaces back there are so dysfunctional that everybody either tears up their car, the curb, or a tree. So I don't know what's to be done, because I'm a tree hugger first and a parker second, but so the trees are very nice, but it would be nice if we could redesign that. I know it's already been done once, so that's about it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on item 5E? Yes, ma'am. Name, address, you have up to 5 minutes.
As I stated before, DOKC hopes to get a comprehensive review of parking downtown. While I'm sympathetic to the needs of the Chamber of Commerce, in particular when it comes to loading and unloading and things like that, because these are things that we have to do all the time, you know, also with downtown OKC in the hospitality industry and stuff. I would really like to look at it in the larger picture of what the needs are on Park Avenue as it changes, and you know, maybe even if Couch is not the preferred location for the chamber, it might be the best location for a 15-minute parking spot. I do understand the need, but I think we have a lot of work to do in looking at how people are parking on Park Avenue. It's not even fully open yet. You know, we still have that courthouse block to get open to see how the folks use it first. So, thank you.
All right, anybody else wanted to speak on item 5E? Okay, staff input.
Thank you. Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce has submitted a request to remove 2 one-hour meter parking spaces and be replaced with 15-minute time-limited free parking. At this time, staff does not have cause to recommend the permanent alteration of current parking controls on Park Avenue between Robinson and Broadway until such time as a new comprehensive plan for parking and loading zones on Couch Drive is developed and presented for the council's consideration. Staff would recommend denying the request and introducing 2 15-minute time limit free parking spaces at this time.
All right, do we have a motion concerning item 5E?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we deny the request at this time until we can do a comprehensive study downtown.
Okay, do we have a second on item 5E?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Okay, do we have any talk on item 5E?
When is the comprehensive plan being looked at?
We've received a request from the MAPS office, or the Project 180 office, concerning parking on Couch, and we just started reviewing parking on Couch just a few weeks ago. So
Not that far off.
Not that far off.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And just so you know, the study I'm referencing, the first internal discussion about how to move forward with a more comprehensive view than just Project 180 and Couch Avenue will happen on Thursday morning.
Okay. Any other discussion on item 5E? Okay, we have a motion to disapprove item 5E from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is not approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5F. Cheryl Millard, Building Manager, 100 Park Avenue Building, to consider a request to remove 1 hour metered parking on the south side of Park Avenue from approximately 218 feet east to 262 feet east of the east curb line of North Robinson Avenue, and establish a full-time commercial loading zone within the same limits. Anybody here to speak on item 5F? Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I want to thank you for hearing all the downtown parking issues on one agenda. So, we understand that there's a need for a commercial loading zone there. We would just like for you to offer it the same consideration like with the government loading zone there, that it not be full-time, and after business hours it revert to public use. I know we get lots of parking there for events at the Skirvin, and including Thunder Games, events at the Cox Center, and a lot of the closer parking on Main Street is taken up by taxi stands and the like. And so if we could put the time thing on this, like on the other use, I think we would be absolutely okay with that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other people want to speak on item 5F? Okay, can I have staff input?
Thank you. Cheryl Millard, Building Manager of 100 Park Avenue, has requested remove 2 one-hour parking spaces to replace them with a full-time commercial loading zone. Currently, there is a commercial loading zone located on Broadway that was temporary for the reconstruction of Park Avenue. So in the absence of a permanent commercial loading zone on Park Avenue within 2 blocks of the proposed location, staff supports a permanent loading zone at this location.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5F?
I wonder if I can ask a question first. If this doesn't have a time limit on it, is it something that we can add a time limit, or would it need to be deferred till the next meeting like the last one?
I'm going to defer to council on this, who believes it would need to be deferred.
So when we say full-time loading zones, they're full-time. They're not with like a regular reserve, the 15-minute limit thing or anything like that. It's full-time if we say it.
Correct. But it's full-time loading. They can use it at 100 Park Avenue. They can use it, Chamber of Commerce can use it for their folks, anybody doing commercial loading at any time.
Right.
Excuse me, did I understand staff correctly earlier in a statement that you'd made that all parking restrictions downtown are basically from 8 to 6, excluding Sunday? So even if we say this is full-time, that restriction still applies? Or does full-time mean full-time 24/7?
If we designate it as full-time, it's 24/7.
So if we say we approve this without adding full-time, then that restriction automatically would apply of 8 to 6 and no Sundays. So as long as we leave that out, then that's automatic. Is that correct?
And then the same thing as the last item, the council is recommending we defer for a month so she can study the issue.
Well, that was due to the government.
Yes, no, there's a distinction. Commissioner Hale's correct, that this, if you were wanting to remove the full-time, I would defer to staff.
So we're okay with that?
Yes, that is not the issue on the prior one was the distinction of
very good.
what it's being reserved for.
Okay. So does that clarify your question, sir?
It sounds like we can just approve it and leave the word full-time out, and then it becomes 8 to 6. I believe.
Okay, so do we have a motion concerning item 5F?
I'd make that motion to approve it without the full-time designation.
leaving it to an 8 to 6 only.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve item 5F from Commissioner George, modifying it to leave out the full-time. Okay, do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any talk from up here on the horseshoe? Okay, ma'am?
I was just going to ask a question of staff that, will the signage be marked that the parking is open after 6 p.m.?
No, ma'am, but there's also no enforcement after 6 p.m.
Okay. Some people are rule followers, others don't mind. And just another reminder, too, that on that block, it's hopeful that in the next 60 days we'll have construction, so most of the parking in front of First National will be gone, so there may not be a whole lot of parking on that side of the street, but people probably won't want to park there anyway. So, thanks.
All right, thank you. Anybody else, any talk on item 5F? Yes, ma'am.
I think I want to just clarify one point, and I think you mentioned that this loading zone could potentially be used to help alleviate some of the chamber issues. And most of the people who are picking up goods and materials from us don't have commercial loading tags or commercial tags, so they really can't use that commercial loading zone to meet this need, because most of ours are just citizens that are doing their good work.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner George to approve item 5F without the full-time words, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, we go on now to 5G, the principal from Mercy School Institute, to consider a request for the installation of a traffic signal at the intersection of North Harvey Avenue and West Memorial Road. Do you have anybody here to speak on item 5G? Yes, sir. If I could have your name, your address, you have up to 5 minutes, and fill one of these out when you're done, please.
My name is Ahmed Kayali. I reside on 805 Northwest 142nd, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Thanks for your time to consider this issue. I'm here as a concerned parent of Mercy School student. The intersection is really dangerous, not only for the students, it's for the businesses on that street. And that street is being developed. And currently there is construction there for new business there, so the traffic is going on. As you know, that zone is for light commercial. So there is 16 acres east of the school area that there is some talk to develop it into some kind of more traffic generated into that area. The traffic, I experience it myself when I drop my kids at school. It's very dangerous to make the left turn in the morning when you are going on eastbound of Memorial. And for the businesses as well, when both of them, they peak at 8 o'clock, there's a lot of traffic in the morning. And some of the data that was included in your rejection reasoning is a study that was done at 4 o'clock, between 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm sure if you do it in the morning, you will have different results. The study meets the third, what they call it, the third, I'm sorry, I'm not traffic engineer.
Peak hour warrant.
Yes, the peak hour, thank you. The peak hour volume, it will be met definitely if you run the test in the morning. The safety issue is what brought me here, because there is a lot of traffic in there. I live on the northeast corner of Western and Memorial, and I exit my neighborhood on Lee. And there is a traffic light there where there is no much traffic, as much as that is generated by business and the school at that concerned intersection. And there is another business on the south side of Memorial, Maxess, which they use it, but the two drives are not aligned. So there should be done something. But the traffic light that controls the traffic in and out of Harvey, I believe it is essential, regardless of whether it meets all the criteria or whatever it is. The safety is there, and we should not wait for accidents to happen there, and then we consider it. That's all what I have.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5G? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
Thank you. This item was continued from the March 21st agenda to this meeting at the request of the applicant. They've requested a traffic signal at the intersection of North Harvey Avenue and West Memorial Road. Our review of the data shows that there have been 5 collisions in 2015 at this intersection. All these collisions recorded were rear-end type collisions, which can increase with the installation of a traffic signal. We analyzed the intersection based on a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. The 85th percentile speed was registered as 48 miles an hour. We did analyze the PM peak hour, which was 104 cars. The AM peak hour was 106 cars. There was, after the PM peak hour of 104 cars, the next hour later was 76 cars, and the AM, the second hour after the peak hour, was 21 cars. So we went out there at the peak time and analyzed the delay. It does fall on the curve for the peak hour, meeting the warrant in the volume of cars, but we reviewed the delay based on the number of vehicles out there, and it did not meet the delay. A 4-hour delay is required, which is the add up all the time, all the cars are delayed at that intersection. If it equals 4 hours, then it has a 4-hour delay. It did not meet the 4 hours. It was, what was it? 20 minutes. So it does not meet the delays and does not meet the warrants. Staff would recommend that possibly having widening of Memorial Road to include a left turn lane there. That would decrease the rear-end collisions and would get left-turning vehicles out of the through traffic.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5G?
I'll make the motion to deny it, and because it doesn't meet but just the peak hour warrant, and only then, not nearly the delay. But I know you're concerned because I live in that area too, and what I would like to see is maybe a turn lane on Memorial from Western all the way to Santa Fe, and that satisfies a lot. And the city's request is for a turn bay to be installed anyway, because the signal wouldn't function properly without split timing and that sort of thing. So I think we ought to put our efforts towards getting a little widening and get the turn lane in there, and then when the signal, if it's going to warrant now, it's only going to get better, supposedly, with more development. And then when it does meet the warrant, then we come back and ask for the signal. That's my reasoning for denying it right now.
Okay. Just a moment. So we have a motion from Commissioner Miller to disapprove item 5G. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Hale. Do we have any talk up here on the horseshoe?
I have a question. What does it take to get the widening discussion started, and a time frame on that? Any ideas?
To get the discussion started is for y'all to recommend a left turn lane. That'll get the discussion started, but then we'll have to take it to Public Works, and not funded at this point in time. They're working on their next GEO bond funding, so that would be something that could be put into the GEO bond funding.
All right. Yes, sir.
And well, that's the reason I brought it up. I know that the bond program is getting to be reconsidered, and it's at the time frame that the end of the projects is now. And I've already mentioned that to some of the street people, so we'll see, but I'm hoping that'll get put in there.
Okay. Any other talk from up here? Sure. Yes, sir.
Are private schools privy to school zones?
The purpose of a school zone is to provide reduced speed of traffic for people to cross the street. It is not to slow down traffic for cars.
Then there's no crosswalk.
There's no crosswalk.
Okay. All right. Sir, you had your hand up. Did you wish to make any more comment? Please.
My major concern is the safety, and especially when you make a turn from Harvey to the eastbound of Memorial in the morning. And there are two cars parking together, on next to each other. It's extremely difficult to clear out the path, to turn up. I do that day in, day out, and I always pray that there will be no accident there. Because I cannot tell how I can turn when there is another car blocking me with no signal, and they fly. I mean, you said 45, but some of them, they fly. And actually, on the other, it's very hard to do that. And for all parents, it's not only for me, and for businesses as well. I'm not talking only for the school. And when you will have more development there, I don't want to wait until there are accidents so the light is warranted. We can see it. It's coming. It's imminent. It will happen. And we would like to have it before we regret it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, any other talk on item 5G? We have a motion to disapprove item 5G from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is disapproved. Okay, we go now to comments from citizen. Item 6. Anybody wish to speak? Okay. We go now to item 7, reports and other items, traffic commissioners, et cetera. But before we get up here on the horseshoe, we have Bike Walk OKC informational presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Sandage. I'm with the City of Oklahoma City Planning Department, and I'm here with my colleague, John Tankard. He is our bicycle and pedestrian specialist. And we want to discuss our active transportation initiatives that we have going on right now. If you'll recall, back in September, we provided, it was basically an introduction to Bike Walk OKC and Watch for Me OKC. And today, we are going to doesn't seem to be working here. We have another pointer. There it goes. Okay. Oh, you did. Okay. So we're going to go over our Bike Walk OKC planning process, the preliminary results, and also give an update on Watch for Me OKC and where we are with that campaign. Next slide. Next. So Bike Walk OKC is an implementation component of the Comprehensive Plan for Oklahoma City, Plan OKC. Next slide. It is the first ever bicycle and pedestrian master plan for Oklahoma City and is an update of the 1997 Trails Master Plan and an update of the 2008 Bicycle Transportation Plan. Next slide. So being an implementation component of Plan OKC, we leaned heavily on the comprehensive plan for our guiding goals in plan development. So those goals include that Oklahoma City transportation system is safe, convenient, and provides a variety of modes. That means automobiles, bicycles, pedestrians, public transportation. Also, the bicycle is used as a form of transportation for all users of all experience levels. And also that Oklahoma City has a complete network, a complete, comprehensive, and connected network of sidewalks. The timeline for our plan, basically we kicked this off about a year ago with a steering committee meeting. We conducted several public outreach meetings within the community. We conducted several months' worth of research and analysis. This included data analysis in our offices and then also quite a lot of field work. And then right now where we are is document preparation. So the steering committee consisted of internal and external members. Internally, there was Public Works Department, Traffic Management was part of the committee. We worked very closely with Parks and Recreation Department. And externally, we had the Department of Transportation, the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments, and the YMCA, and a variety of other members of the community that have interest or are influential in the bicycle and pedestrian area. Next slide. So since this is part of the comprehensive plan, Plan OKC, we used many of the plan policies from the comprehensive plan to essentially inspire plan development. But these are also policies that we will lean heavily on during plan implementation. So we have about 40 plan policies, but I'm just going to go through the top 5 today. So essentially go back one slide. The first policy is to incorporate proposed bicycle facilities on roadways being reconstructed, resurfaced, or restriped. So when a road is up for reconstruction, resurfacing, a micro resurfacing, or just simply being restriped, it is the most efficient and cost-effective way to incorporate bicycle facilities at that time, because it might just be adding bicycle striping. Next slide. We also want to work on education. We're going to get more into the Watch For Me OKC campaign here in a minute, but that is something that we've been working on. We've been to several health fairs, elementary schools, working with Boy Scout troops. We will be working with the YMCA over the summer. Next slide. Another policy is to encourage development of alternative transportation programs for employees. So just as the City of Oklahoma City has an option for employees to choose a parking pass or a transit pass, this is something that we want to encourage other employers throughout the city to do. Go back one slide. So as you can see, there's a logo on the left-hand side of the screen. It's the Bike to Work Day. I just want to make a plug for that. This is coming up on Friday, Bike to Work Day. There will be 5 organized rides coming into downtown from around the city. Next slide. We have engaged the police department in our Watch For Me OKC campaign, and we will continue to work with the police department throughout this process. And this is something that we want to continue to do, because the police department interacts with motorists, pedestrians, cyclists on a daily basis, whereas we do not. So that's something that, in order to continue to implement our plan and implement cycling and walking as a viable mode of transportation, that's something that we need to do. Also, we plan to set service goals and standards to improve performance of facilities. So we need to know how we are doing. We are purchasing bicycle and pedestrian counters to put on our trails. That is so we can know how those facilities are performing, but also to use that data as leverage in federal grant applications. We can use that count data to essentially show how well they are performing and to compete for more money for additional facilities.
So I'll take over now. Okay, so Matt kind of hit on the concept of if you don't count, you don't count, and that kind of applied to our public outreach as well, where we engaged the public with a survey and public outreach meetings, and we got more than 1,700 responses on our survey, which is a significant number for our community. Next slide. And so we went out and talked to them about existing conditions. What does our sidewalk network look like today? What does our bicycle network look like, and what comprises those? Next slide. And this map shows the results of that survey. Like I said, 1,700 plus responses, and the darker the green means the higher absolute number of responses by zip code. And with those results, we saw some pretty distinct trends. Kind of the key points: less than 1 in 10 citizens rated conditions for walking and biking as satisfactory today. However, greater than 90% said that it was something that was very important to them. So that kind of illustrates the imperative of making this plan. And some of the key reasons for why conditions were not meeting their needs, they kind of center around 2 different topics: interactions with motor vehicles, whether that's heavy traffic or aggressive motorists, and then the quality of the infrastructure. So does it exist? Is it well maintained? And can you cross back and forth safely? So I'm going to go through the pedestrian planning process real quick, and just want to emphasize that this is a plan for all types of users, whether that's someone like me or somebody who has to use a wheelchair. our visually impaired citizens as well. So our analysis started at the citywide scale, and because of just the scale of our city and the difficulty of pulling out individual projects for a 620 square mile area, we did a lot of digital analysis in GIS and used that to prioritize areas and work our way down into the field to actually propose specific changes. And we used a list of prioritization criteria from Plan OKC, and so this kind of guided our project selection or our prioritization within certain areas, first of which being responsive populations. In this case, that's people who are likely to be pedestrians, whether that means they don't have access to a motor vehicle, they choose not to own a car, or maybe they're disabled and can't drive. Then we also wanted to connect to schools and parks. These are community assets that we wanted to emphasize, and that kind of plays into the neighborhood revitalization as well. Finding key areas to connect existing networks, so finding gaps in our system was essential to this process. And as well, we wanted to connect neighborhoods to our primary corridors, the urban commercial areas. So this map shows all the analysis that we did. It's a lot. This is all of the intersections in Oklahoma City. That's more than 25,000 intersections. And we included a lot of criteria on, what is in the field right now. So at these intersections, are there crosswalks? Are they signalized intersections? Do sidewalks come into the intersection? We also looked at, are these intersections in close proximity to things that generate pedestrian activity, like schools or grocery stores, transit stops, and employment centers. And so you can kind of see the areas that in blue that are kind of the greatest opportunity, the highest return on our investment if we make improvements. And so within these prioritized areas, we kind of took a phasing approach to, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but then also how you fund that is important. So for phase one, we were looking at our major roads. So these are the places with the commercial corridors, the things that generate pedestrian activity. Often it's our transit routes. And for phase two, that was more about connecting the neighborhoods to these main corridors. And you might think of phase one as being something that's ready to be packaged for a GEO bond issue. Phase two might be a future bond issue or a future maps type program. Next slide. And so this is animated, so bear with me here. We're going to have to, this is just trying to explain the phasing process. So imagine this street grid is anywhere urban Oklahoma City. So this could be Southwest 29th and Western. And these are the phase one sidewalks going along the main arterial roads here. And phase two would be to connect the neighborhoods and the surrounding areas to these main roads. Next slide. Similarly, intersections are very important when considering walkability. Walkability is the ability to walk on either side of the road and cross back and forth safely. Next slide. And so our phase one improvements for intersections would occur at the intersection of phase one roads or places where existing facilities are not meeting the current need. And phase two improvements would be where those phase two type sidewalks intersect a phase one sidewalk or each other. And those improvements might be adding ADA ramps, putting in crosswalks. It may be cutting through a median that's forcing people in wheelchairs to go out into intersections. Next slide. Or it may be putting in pedestrian push buttons for safe crossing or recommending full stop signalization to improve the walkability of a specific area.
Okay, so now transitioning to bicycle planning. John discussed pedestrian planning in small areas. Bicycle planning is somewhat different because cyclists are more inclined to ride multiple miles at a time. One of the activities that we conducted with the steering committee early on was a mapping activity. Now, our steering committee, as we discussed earlier, was made up of experts in their field, folks that use our facilities quite often in cycling or walking. They discussed with us areas where they have issues, intersections they have problems with, areas they currently ride on, or maybe areas that they would like to ride in the future. And through that process, we came up with multiple themes. These themes include connecting existing resources. So these resources could be connecting trail to trail. They could be connecting trail to lake, they could be connecting lake to lake, or residential areas to trail, or residential areas to bicycle facilities. Also, crossing barriers came up over and over again. These barriers include crossing the river, crossing I-240, crossing I-44. The list goes on. Also, providing a mix of transportation and recreational facilities or dual-purpose facilities. We have, that is in the process, the I-44 trail, which will be a recreational trail, but also it'll serve multiple neighborhoods and also give those folks the opportunity to ride to work or ride to shop. So that is an example of a dual-purpose facility. Since this plan is an update of the 1997 Trails Master Plan, we leaned heavily on it for Trails Plan development. The 97 Trails Master Plan was a great plan, and in my book, a great success, because many of the trails that are within that plan have been constructed or are currently under construction or will be soon. So through that process, we found some gaps that maybe we thought that adding an additional trail would be appropriate. There were areas where we thought that subtracting the trail was appropriate, areas that were no longer a high priority. Also, rerouting previously planned trails to pick up additional residential neighborhoods, or potentially reclassifying trails that previously planned trails from a separate facility to an on-street bicycle facility. We conducted a bicycle suitability analysis. This incorporated number of lanes, roadway speeds, also roadway volumes, traffic volumes, and essentially, so on the map you have, it has a gradient from highest suitability to lowest suitability. The blue is the highest suitability. Those are the alignments where that are more suitable to cycling, and the red are lowest suitability. This map essentially tells us what type of facility is appropriate where. If you see the red lines, many of the interstate facilities are red. It is illegal to ride on an interstate. But also you'll see that there are arterials and section line roads that are red. Now, some of those came up in through our analysis process as being areas that people would like to cycle or are currently cycling. But because they are red, these alignments require a higher degree of attention and potentially a higher level of investment to make them safe. So the types of facilities that we are looking at with this plan are bike routes. We have quite a few bike routes currently. These share the lane with automobiles. So in this way, we approach them very cautiously because they ride in the road with automobiles. These in urban settings should be on roads with a speed limit of 25 miles per hour or less. And in rural settings where we know that a 25 mile per hour speed limit is not reasonable, we suggest that when that road is reconstructed in the future, that a shoulder also be constructed with it. Bike lanes were also considered in this plan. We currently have about 7 miles of bicycle lanes. These are dedicated spaces for cyclists, and they are typically 4 to 8 feet wide. The protected bike lane is something that we do not have currently, and this is something we are introducing with this plan. This is very similar to the bicycle lane, except that you have vertical delineators that separate traffic from the bicycle lane. So this gives a additional safety and also the perception of safety for the users of the facility. We are proposing additional miles of multi-use trails. This is Overholser Trail. This is a picture of the Overholser Trail. These are 10 to 12 feet wide, completely separate from automobiles, and the safest facility, also the most expensive. So our existing on-street bicycle network is on the map. The purple lines are bicycle routes, and the orange lines are bicycle lanes. When you add in the multi-use trails, the picture becomes a little more complete. You have the West River Trail connecting to Lake Overholser, and then you can get up to Lake Hefner. The proposed new bicycle facility map includes orange bicycle lanes, purple bicycle routes, green multi-use trails, and the red is the protected bike lane. That's the new facility that we're introducing. And the network that we've created with the proposed facilities before us, essentially we would like to be able to get from one side of the city to the other on a multi-use trail or a protected bicycle facility. And you can pretty much accomplish that on this map. When you add in the existing facilities, then you get a very comprehensive network. Now, this is a plan that, just like the Trails Master Plan was a 20-year plan. This is not something that will be constructed within the next year, but it'll be a 10, 15, 20-year plan to create a comprehensive bicycle network. Now, we can't forget about the intersections. The intersection types that we are considering on the left, those are bicycle boxes. Those are appropriate when a bicycle laned route intersects with another bicycle facility. This allows for the cyclist to queue to the front of the line and get in front of automobiles and to turn safely left onto the intersecting street. Where we don't want to encourage cyclists to turn onto the intersecting street, this would be, let's say, Independence Avenue and Northwest Expressway. We don't want cyclists to turn on the Northwest Expressway. We are recommending parallel striping to guide the cyclist across, potential green conflict paint to indicate to motorists that there may be a cyclist crossing. With that, we will transition into Watch For Me OKC. This is our transportation safety campaign. This is a safety campaign for all modes of transportation. This is funded by an FHWA, Federal Highway Administration safety grant. The first grant, the federal share, is about a little over $400,000. We are incorporating a second grant that is around $360,000. A major component of Watch For Me OKC is the promotional side, and the promotional and educational side. As I mentioned earlier, we've been working with elementary schools. We've been working at health fairs. We've done advertising on the buses. You may have seen those. On the Spokies bikes. And then this summer, we're going to be working with the YMCA. There's about 1,200 kids in the YMCA that we will be working with to help educate on transportation safety. We've handed out and delivered tens of thousands of these Watch For Me OKC brochures. These have the rules of the road and safety tips for safe walking, safe cycling, and safe driving. We also have a part of Watch For Me is a radio campaign. So I don't know if this will play or not, but we're going to give it a shot.
Hi, this is Mick Cornett, the mayor of Oklahoma City. Building a world-class city means making our city more bikeable, walkable, and drivable. This city is for everyone, and our streets are too. Go to watchformeokc.com for more.
Just a little background on that. We have 5 ads running over more than a dozen stations right now. So this campaign is reaching out from the perspective of the city as well as drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians.
Yeah. We hope that this will, the message will reach in the millions of people potentially, because it's also on the online radio as well. Another component of Watch For Me OKC is the bicycle and pedestrian counters, the data gathering and evaluation. We are purchasing 3 bicycle and pedestrian counters for the Katy Trail, the Lake Hefner Trail, and I-44 Trail. And then we are also doing demonstration corridors. So this is essentially education through implementation. We have the Federal Highway Administration grant money to purchase paint and delineators, and we plan to construct multiple types of bicycle facilities within our downtown and midtown. We've been working very closely with the Public Works Department on this, and we have identified what we're calling the downtown loop. That would be the anchor of the demonstration corridors. You can see that outlined in blue. And then coming off of that would be essentially the spokes of the system that bring people down to it.
This is a rare opportunity where we have a bicycle plan that we are able to begin implementing right away. That's something that most cities do not have.
And the second source of funds, that second grant amount, that has not been included in this map at this time. We are going to be identifying additional areas to connect to the downtown with that money. And this is, we saw a picture of this earlier in the facility types, but this is what we are looking at doing on components of that demonstration corridor. And as you can see, there is some green conflict paint at one of the intersections and the vertical delineators for the protected bike lanes. And that is all we have for you today.
Well, this goes right along from, I've been on here since we started this back in 07 or 08, and this is just going on. Just like you said, it's a long-term plan, tying it all in, modifying, like you're saying here, that you're looking at modifying the plan to go for another 20 years and eventually get there. So a lot of good work, and the key part that we talked about for years and years was to get out that word, like, watch for me. Whether it's walkers, bicyclists, drivers, just be safe out there. Just get along. And I think we're on track for that. Anybody up here on the horseshoe, anything?
I have one. How would the demonstration corridors determined where those are going to be done?
So part of that is the bicycle suitability analysis that we showed. We look at the roadways with, we determine how much capacity they have. Also, traffic studies will be conducted as part of it to determine, will the traffic be negatively impacted by the construction of the demonstration corridor. But essentially, what we are taking is the maps that we've created through Bike Walk, and essentially just radiating outward from downtown.
And if I can add, these are already existing bike routes. So we looked at roads that had been identified in the 2008 plan that were in downtown, especially connecting to new residential development to encourage people to be able to bike around downtown to discourage unnecessary driving.
It caught my eye, Chartel, especially north of 13th, if the intention would be that would be a demonstration corridor as shown with the vertical delineators and such. It seems like that would be challenging with the width of the driving lane and the parallel parking. And so how would it be implemented in that situation?
So the vertical delineators are proposed south of 13th.
So we've done a lot of the design work and looking at the widths of the street. And right now that I believe Chartel is either 4 11-foot lanes or 4 12-foot lanes, and a bike lane requires 5 feet plus a buffer of 2 feet. You end up with more than enough room to accommodate the modes of traffic with the current volume of traffic flow.
And it would be south of 13th, where the protected bicycle lane would come into play.
Yes.
So north of 13th, no change?
No change.
Right.
Got it.
Okay, over here, somebody?
Well, the comment I had, I know these projects and what you're looking at, but is there any thought given to the future maintenance and upkeep? Because these require specialized striping, you've got delineators, but it seems like on all these programs, there's never much mention about the upkeep of them, and they go get one in, and then they all just fall apart because nobody funded for them later. Has that been considered in this overall plan? And to what extent?
Yes, that is something that we have discussed quite a lot. And I discussed early on about the plan policies and how the routes and the lanes would be implemented as roads are reconstructed and restriped. It could be a part of that process. Well, and then the lane striping would be on the same maintenance schedule as the regular vehicle lane striping as well. So it would all be on the same cycle as the lanes need restriping, as the traffic lanes need restriping, then the bicycle lanes would also be restriped at the same time.
Well, it depends on the service life of each one of whether the traffic lane's going to wear out quicker than a bicycle lane. So that'll be a decision that's made, but at least you've considered and thought about it. But that gets to be an issue later on, is who maintains this stuff after we build it.
Do we expect to see a formal package submitted to us that would head to City Council, kind of thing like we did back in 07, 08 with the original, or do they just go to City Council and modifications, or is this whole plan here an actual change to the bike route plan?
It is. It's an update to it, and we will be taking this through Planning Commission. It'll probably go to Planning Commission.
Right.
It's gone once as an information item. It'll go for a recommendation, and then it'll go to City Council.
Okay, so it'll go through Planning Commission. It won't come through us. This was just an update for us of what's being worked.
Right. As new facilities are constructed, those individual facilities will likely come through you.
Right, but for the basic plan, any updates that you really want to do to the plan, you're working through the Planning Commission.
That's right.
And then we'll run it up to City Council. Okay, good. So any other further comments?
I'd just make a
Yes,
quick comment. First of all, you guys did a great job on the presentation today. It's a great program. And I'm just really happy that this is going on in the city. I mean, it's you guys are doing a great job with it. I think the plan looks fantastic, and hopefully it won't be 20 years. I mean, hopefully we can get somehow, what it takes, but something to get that moving even quicker, because I just think it's a huge part of a vibrant Oklahoma City, a big city. We need it. We need this to kind of continue to pull us forward. So thank you.
Okay, any other discussion, comments? All right, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, we proceed on here with item 7, the reports and other items. We'll go ahead and start over here, Ward 1, to Commissioner Witcher.
Nothing to report, sir.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Nothing from Ward 2, but I do have a neighborhood traffic calming subcommittee report to make today. After last month's meeting, we met with the Public Works Director, Eric Wenger, and we followed up with him on the progress that we had made. What the subcommittee had kind of figured out was that there's lots of cities in this country that have neighborhood traffic calming programs. We focused on those. We had developed a fairly long list of traffic calming tools that we presented to Mr. Wenger. And to our pleasure, a very healthy inventory of a number of those he has taken back to his office. He's going to visit with City Manager Couch on where we are on this, and he anticipates the very good possibility of presenting a plan to this commission by the end of the year. A couple of the items that are important to know is we were able to make a distinction in model tools, an inventory that could be applied administratively. We made an inventory of a model tools that would go through the very same process that's intact right now and would be applied accordingly. And those would be items that would be of a nature where a neighborhood association perhaps could afford to do a fundraising project or something like that to implement these things if they're approved. The other thing to consider is there's a lot of talk about maps for neighborhoods coming up. There's lots of different resources where neighborhoods could come up with funds for these. And then there was a third category that we talked about, which would be much larger issues like road windings or curb bump outs or things like that that would definitely come through a body such as this and have to go through an approval and then go on some sort of a waiting list for funding, or even in that case, an opportunity to partner with neighborhoods. So I really feel as though we've gotten somewhere. I really feel as though we've got a product that's a very useful tool for neighborhoods in Oklahoma City that's forthcoming. It's simple, it's not complicated, and these are all very contemporary traffic calming items that we've talked about that are very widely used and effective. Another important comment to make about the program is we've discovered that not just one tool fixes one problem. It often takes a combination of 2 or 3 things in an inventory. The 2 or 3 things don't have to be high-priced and complicated. One could have a fairly substantial price tag, and then you add to it tree planting or shrubbery or street painting, or I love that term, vertical. We talked about those in this bike plan. So I'm very pleased about it. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll probably be tabling meetings of the subcommittee while the staff is looking at this and putting it together. But certainly know that we, Mr. Schuline and I would definitely be there to help in any way if there were any questions. So good news from the committee.
All right, Ward 3, Commissioner White.
Nothing to report, sir.
Commissioner Hale.
I've had a request from one of the citizens in Ward 5 that Oklahoma City Police do some observation and enforcement on Southwest 134 between Santa Fe and Pennsylvania. Evidently, that is a growing problem, and if you could take care of that, it would be appreciated. But besides that, nothing to report.
Here we go to Commissioner Schuline.
I had a similar request near Northwest 12th and Miller Boulevard. I think the Miller neighborhood had their home tour this last weekend, and there was some concern raised by several of the residents there. But if you could check into that, we'd really appreciate it.
Okay, here we go to Commissioner Miller. None to report, sir. Commissioner George.
The widening on Memorial, the possibility of, I'm glad Mr. Miller has already kind of started that ball rolling. I know it's when a school comes in, you know, and they're all concerned about their students and about getting to their school in one piece. Sure, it's, you know, you don't like the fact that it just got turned down for something you perceive as very, very important to you. So I'm glad that widening is not taking place, but at least the talks are started on how we can do it, how well it would work and such. So anyway, that's what I got.
Okay, and staff says that you have note on that, and you're going to pass that along. Okay, LT, do you have anything? Counselor? Staff?
You have our yield and parking restriction report for you. Nothing else?
Okay, do I have any other business to be done? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Second? Second. Everybody vote. And we're out of here.